Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mike Kollin at MikeKollin.com. The name of this song is called The Impossible by Savk. And isn't that what your journey feels like? Impossible. You may not remember and you may not believe it, but you chose this journey. It is forcing you to go through something so you can finally arrive at the place, the destiny that you've always wanted to be. Okay, the music will go down in about another minute. So what is this place that you chose? Now, you chose this before you came down here to this plane of existence. Now I'm going to ask you a question before I say it. Are you drawn to Christ, to Jesus Christ, to His teachings? Is there something about Him that you love? You're just drawn to Him. There's a powerful sense of you that is there. So for a lot of you, my ex-girlfriend was Laotian, which is right next to Thailand. So when I went through my awakening, now a lot of you're calling this narcissist abuse thing an awakening. The awakening that I had was extremely spiritual. It was beyond anything that I've ever experienced since then. I was healing people. I was telling people what's going to happen in the next 2 or 3 days. I mean, I was just doing all kinds of stuff. I've made videos about this in the past. So here's the deal. She's Buddhist. And I went to my pastor and he said, yeah, I kind of understand. I went through something similar, but not at this level. So he had no advice for me. He didn't really know what to say. So then I went to a Sikh temple in Sacramento. They didn't understand. And yet when I walked into their temple, I'm like, that's really interesting. The men are on the left, the women on the right. Well, the left brain is the male brain. The right brain is the female brain. The interesting thing is when I walked in, I knelt on the right side with the women, not quite realizing what I was doing. It just felt more comfortable. So my awakening was an extreme, complete, full right brain opening. This is Christ consciousness. So then I went to a Buddhist temple in San Francisco, but it was a Japanese style. And the head Buddha there had no clue what I was going through. And I looked, and I could tell by his energy, he was very linear, very logical. I didn't know until a few years later when I started learning the basics about Buddhism is there's different forms of Buddhism. There's the very left extreme, rules, structure, and organization, which is how the left brain processes. It literally processes through rules, structure, and organization. And then you have the far right, where it's not about rules, it's about complete opening and expansion. The Japanese style is about discipline. In martial arts, we would call that the closed fist, whereas the right way is the open or the soft hand, the soft way. So the Laotian temple, luckily, that's the way they do it. So I was on the right side, which was the open. So here's basically how it works. I was an extremely left-brain disciplined person. I meditated, I followed the rules, I prayed every morning a certain time for a certain amount of length of time. I read the Bible every morning, every afternoon, every evening. I was extremely religious and disciplined, a very left brain. Lots and lots of structure. I had meditated every day for many, many years until I got to a point where I was meditating on the weekends almost all day. I mean, I'm talking 12 to 16 hours a day. It was extremely rigid. I quit everything. I went full vegetarian. No eggs, no cheese, no milk, no animal products at all. And I did that for 3 years. So meditation, as I've said in the past, like generally if I meditated for 2 hours, I would have 1 hour of peace so I could go out in public in an open, spatial way. And it was wonderful, but then after about, half the time that I meditated, it would start to close back up and I would go back into my ego. So I'd immediately go back home and I would start to meditate again to open up again. Then I'd go out in public and I was like, man, this just went on for years. So then I'd meditate for 2 or 3 hours, and then 4, then 5, then 6. And then on the weekends I would just amplify it even more. And during the week I'd meditate 2 hours in the morning and then 2 hours in the evening. And it was just every day, extreme, rigid, disciplined Japanese style. Until one day I just said, I'm just going to meditate. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to eat. I'm not going to go to work. I'm not going to go to the gym. I'm just going to meditate until, how do I explain? It's like I wanted to get rid of this fear. I wanted to get rid of this anxiety. And that's essentially what I did. And it reminds me in the Bible when, I can't remember his name, but he basically wrestled with an angel or wrestled with God and wouldn't let go of his leg even though he got injured, until he finally gave him this gift. And that's essentially what I was doing. And that's exactly what Jesus did when he went out into the desert and he made a circle and he said, I'm staying inside the circle until. He didn't eat food or anything day or night. And I think it was 21 days if I remember right. So mine lasted for 14 days. No food at all. Only water. And on the very last day, I collapsed. I cried hysterically. I literally stood up and opened my arms and I cried out to God and I said, please just come into me. Take this anxiety, take this fear away from me once and for all. You got to understand, I had been praying and I just, God, please. And I prayed probably for an hour, and I just remember the very, very, very end of it. I stood up and I cried and I was just bawling my eyes out. And I wanted God to take this away. And I just remember saying over and over, please just come inside me and take this away. And then I gave up. And that's the secret. See, the whole discipline thing is to get you to literally to the point where you finally collapse. You completely explode. You've completely committed yourself and it still didn't work. And you finally let go, and then the doors open up, and that's the secret. So when I was talking to the Japanese monk, he had no idea what I was talking about, and I remember looking at his eyes and listening to his voice. Very logical, very strict, very disciplined, very closed. And I looked at him, it's like, oh, and I said this out loud. I said, and this was in his office. I go, oh, you're not awake. And he looked at me, he was, what? I go, you're not spiritually awake. I go, you have no idea what I'm talking about. And he got offended, of course, and I understand now why. Because he had his ego saying, oh, I'm spiritual. He wasn't spiritual at all. He never pushed himself to the point where he completely collapsed and let go. The interesting thing was, it was the next morning, before this monk, but when I begged God to come into me to take it away, I remember I went to bed feeling like I failed, feeling like I let God down, feeling like it was the worst feeling in the world. Honestly, it felt like I quit on God. It was probably the saddest moment in my life. And I just remember when I went to bed, I slept like a baby. It was the first time in my life when I just slept so good. So when I woke up, I was awake. I slept probably for 11 hours. I don't remember how long, but I slept like a baby. It was the first probably night in my entire life where I just slept. It was an amazing experience. When I woke up, everything was different. I was like, what the? I felt so expanded. I felt so relieved. I felt so good. It was a wonderful experience. I would say years later, I realized what I had done. I had let go of control. I had let go of thinking. Number one, I had let go of thinking. I had let go of believing that I had to be this perfectly disciplined person where everything had to be structured and perfect, and I had to be this disciplined being. And it turns out it's called what I call it. I call it the art of letting go. When I say let go, I mean it is a complete and total collapse of everything. You just completely, and everything, every muscle, every fiber, your entire brain just lets go. You realize at that moment, you were the one that was holding the door closed from God the entire time. So that's the secret, is letting go. and the doors will open wide open. So I'm going to give you a couple of quick examples because I've gone in depth on this in other videos. So I'm going to give you an example of what I mean. It was like I suddenly just knew stuff, and I mean it was ridiculous. I just knew stuff that I never even studied. Suddenly I knew about this planetary system called Sirius because it kept coming to me. Like every night it was a lesson for 6 months. This is how long it lasted. And I knew it was where I was from, and I also knew it was like a star system. So I went to I drew these circles out, okay, because it's like an image that kept coming to me. I was like, what is this? So I went to the local college with my girlfriend. I told her all about this. The word this keeps coming to my brain. It's serious, but not like the word like, oh, I'm being serious. It's like the name of a planet or a planetary system or a star or something. And we went to the local college, and the professor said, yeah, just go in the library and ask the librarian about it. So he said, go ask her to get you a book on it. So we walked. Now here's the deal. Right before we walked in, the entrance to this library was one small doorway. It was really weird because they did have it in a wider thing, but they only had the small narrow doorway. I think so people wouldn't steal it or steal books, but whatever. So right when we got there, this young librarian walked right in front of us, and she goes, can I help you? I'm like, well, yeah. And I go, I'm looking for a book on the planet or the star system Sirius, Sirius. And she looked at me, she goes, are you joking? I'm like, no, why? And essentially, she goes, what's this about? And I said, well, I'm having this really weird spiritual thing, and it keeps coming to me, and I drew this diagram and this and this and that. And she's like, I go, why are you asking? She goes, I just put that book down. It's the first time I've ever even seen that. She goes, I know exactly where it is. That was the last book I put down. So she walked us over there. She grabbed the book and put it in my hands. I go, watch. And I showed them both the picture that I drew. I go, when I open it up, in the middle of the book somewhere, that's exactly what we're going to see. I opened the book up to the exact same thing. It went from the left page across to the right page. So one day I went over to my sister's, and her friend Sandy and Sherry were there. And I forget how we got in the conversation, but back then everybody was like, we were playing cards all the time. Okay, at least they were. I got burned out. I wasn't really into it. And they would buy like decks of cards, and they'd be wrapped in plastic. They wouldn't be able, so she had a whole I don't know, a case of them, but it was like they came in like packs of 10 or whatever. So what happened was I grabbed the deck. I go pull a card and look at it, but I want you to really visualize the color of the card, like as if it's a heart, really visualize the heart and visualize the number. And I'd be like 9 of hearts, 3 of clubs, queen or red queen. And I was just nailing them. So I got about 10 in a row. And my sister goes, how are you doing this? Is this some kind of trick? I'm like, no, Amber, I'm telling you, some kind of spiritual awakening that I'm going through. And that was another thing. I don't know why. Back then, no one talked about awakenings at all. And I don't know why, but I knew I was awake. So she and her friends thought I had some kind of trick. She goes, did you mark this deck of cards or something somehow? And I just can't figure it out. Because she was looking on the back of the cards, like there must be something on there. I'm like, Amber, I've never even been over here. Like, what are you talking about? So she went back in her room and got a brand new deck that was still wrapped in plastic. So she came out, we shuffled the deck. I let her shuffle it. And I go, let me know when you're ready. So she pulled the card. I'm like, boom, Ace of Diamonds. Boom, Queen of Hearts. Boom, and I was just nailing it. And one of them, I froze. I'm like, I go, hey, you've got to actually picture it. And I didn't realize, she told me later, like she purposely was picturing a different number. And I go, you got to picture the number that's on the card. You can't, you can't do another one, etc. So she told me later, she goes, that's exactly what I was doing. So what happened was, I got about to, I don't remember if it was 9 or 14, but I got up pretty high in number, and I was nailing every one. It wasn't like I'd get 2 missed ones. Like, no, I nailed every single one. She burst out in tears. She's like, how are you doing this? And her friends were like, dude, what? Like, they were freaked. So, I'll give you one quick one. So, my ex-girlfriend every now and then would just disappear. Like, she would leave her family, friends, like, and wouldn't tell anyone. And she would be gone for months. Now, this happened a couple times. One of the times, I sat down, I meditated because her sister called me. She was crying. Is she over there? Please let me know. I just want to know if she's alive. And so, I was like, no, I swear. And eventually, I meditated, and it said, all right, get up, get in your car, go. I drive down the road. I'm like, okay. It said, take it right here. I'm like, okay. And then it went away. I'm like, well, what the hell? And then it came back. It's like, take a right. Boom, I got on the freeway. I went all the way down. And I'm really excited. And it went away. And after about 5 minutes. I'm like, well, fuck, what do I do? Did I turn around and go back home? And because it didn't, nothing, but it didn't do anything because it wasn't ready to tell me to take a turn yet. So I just kept going and going. About 15 minutes into or so, and then it was like, take this exit. Now it was at Davis, where UC Davis, the college is in California. It's like, go left over the overpass. I'm like, cool, like, like, what is this? And they go to stop sign, and go through, take a right, boom, park. And that's exactly where she was, a place that I'd never been to in my life. So there's a lot more to it. There was a couple healings that I did. There, I'm not going to go into detail, but that's what I'm talking about. When you truly let go, God will lead you. You will get information that you out of nowhere that you just happen to need in that moment. So one of the things is, before we come to this planet, now I'm going to go back to the beginning of this video, of what I first started talking about. So you came here, or before you came here, when I'm going to call it in the spirit world, we'll call it that, in heaven or spirit world, or whatever you want to call it, is you came down here because you wanted to fully reconnect with your own authority. You wanted to connect with thinking for yourself, with making decisions for your own life. Here's the thing, you chose a tough path. Now, why did you do that? Because you wanted to make sure that this time through, you were forced to get to where you need to be. So now, when I asked you if you are attracted to Christ, if there was just something in you like this, like it is so important, like Jesus is the most important being in the world to you, and you just feel powerfully drawn to him, you probably never really thought, well, everyone is. No, not every, even people that go to church, they really don't, a lot of them don't give a shit. Maybe I shouldn't have said it in that negative way, but they don't sit there and pray their hearts out every day, every night, begging God to help them. It's just not in them. They go to church, they go to work. Yeah, this is life. So what? You have always had a fervency for Jesus, for Christ. And it's for one simple phrase that you, to my knowledge, I think you'll only find it once in the Bible. And that phrase is what Jesus says, look within. That's why you're going through this journey, because it is forcing you to stop listening to other people. Because, I'm going to explain it this way. It's almost as if we're in a game. And by the way, before I continue this, every person on this planet has came here for a different purpose. So do not think that everyone's here for religion or everyone's here for spiritual growth. Some people are here to experience one thing that's very specific, and it's not even close to what you're going through. So do not try to think like, oh, everyone's got to be a Christian, or everyone's got to be on this path, or everyone's got to be on this. Some people are here for completely radically different purposes. Some of them have already completed the journey that you are just now on the verge of completing. You gotta understand, not everyone is a fireman, not everyone is a nurse, not everyone is a doctor, not everyone is a soldier, not everyone is a teacher, not everyone is a professor, not everyone is a scientist. There are different roles and positions for different beings, spirits, and souls. So if you're one of those people that tells everyone, hey, you've got to read the Bible, hey, you've got to watch this, hey, you've got to be on my path, you're only doing that because you're afraid to do it on your own. The problem with that is you can only do this on your own. And that is one of the reasons and or purposes that you came here. So let's get back to the game. On the one hand, a lot of you, and I'll even go into religious people, Christian people, like we speak about this man being Christ, God, who could walk on water, who turned water into wine, who healed people of everything from blindness to bleeding to you name it. And he could take demons out of people, and they talked about angels and God and spirits and spirituality and spiritual meaning. And yet most Christians, and I don't mean this in a negative way, it's a very hard thing to actually accept when when it walks into your front door. So someone does something miraculous like healing someone of cancer, as I have done multiple times. Even though they're thankful, they're also very freaked out. It's like suddenly the Bible comes to reality. When I was an associate pastor, one of the last presentations I gave, I said, I tell you the truth, if Jesus Christ himself were to walk through those doors right there, you would reject him viciously. Because he's not religious at all. He's very spiritual. One of the things I realized, that was when I was about 20 years old, that was after my spiritual awakening when I was going through it. I realized most religious people do not, how do I say this? They don't, you could say you believe, I believe, but I mean actually believe in spirituality from knowing, from experiences. And when someone walks through the door and they're actually doing stuff, it freaks them out. They're like, oh, this is same thing they said to Jesus. Oh, you're doing the work of the devil, or the devil must be doing this. They literally demonized him. So for whatever reason, we're on different levels and we're all in different places. And that's okay. I believe we're all exactly where we're supposed to be. So if you went through this horrific narcissist abuse, I don't mean just as a child, but also as a teen, and maybe even not even that, but if you went through the final one where it was the most horrific, terrifying, dark, heavy experience that you could possibly imagine, where it felt like they ripped your soul out and your heart, you're towards the end of your path. So here's what happened. You came here to truly, truly believe in yourself, to think for yourself, to know. See, most people are full of doubt. They don't believe in themselves. They read a book about Jesus. They hear he walked on water, healed people, water into wine, and did these amazing things. And then it also says he taught his disciples how to heal and how to do all these miraculous things as well. He also then said, there are, how do you say it? But basically down the road he said, there are others who shall do greater things than I, greater miracles, greater everything. Now, thousands of years later, when people are actually doing these great things, people in the church are like, I don't know if I believe now, it's a little weird. And that's kind of the whole point. They don't believe. They don't truly believe. Even though he said, if ye believe, ye shall receive whatever you ask in prayer. When the woman reached out and touched him and was healed of her bleeding, instantly he turned around and he said, by ye faith ye are healed. Because you have such a strong belief, you are healed. He says that to every single person. And that's what this journey is about. Look within. Because when you finally truly look within and listen to that inner being, I'm going to call it the self, yourself, that's when you start thinking for yourself. That's when you start doing. That's when you finally believe. That's what the phrase, look within, is all about. This entire journey that you guys are on, if you're on my channel, it's all about look within. Because that's how you connect with God. That's how you connect with your power. Before, you ping-ponged from all these other people. You surrounded yourself in the church. And I remember, I think every single pastor that I've ever been under has flat out told me, because don't listen to the people in the pews. They're not reading their Bible. I go, what do you mean they're not reading their Bible? He goes, no, Michael, you read it. You're looking up the dictionary words of what did this word mean back then in the Hebrew language? What did this word mean back then in the whatever language? He goes, you wanted to know the definitions. He goes, they're not digging deep. They're just scrolling their eyes across the words. They don't even know what it means. He would say that in church too. He goes, don't listen to the people sitting next to you. They don't know what they're talking about. Stop listening to them. You got to dig deep into the Bible. You've got to really sit here and listen and pay attention to what I'm saying. Because you can say to people over and over, like Jesus said, if you believe, you shall receive whatever you ask for in prayer. Oh, amen, amen. And they just they don't get it because they're not really listening. I remember Pastor Gainey. This was when I was going through my awakening. He was up front, and he's like, hold on, stop. And they're just like, what? He goes, you're not listening to me. Amen. Now, this was a pretty big church. I think it was like 1,000 people or 800 or whatever it was. It was a big church. And the whole church, amen. He goes, no. He goes, stop. And everyone gets quiet again. He goes, you're not listening to what I'm, amen. And he's just looking at them like, it was like, they're a bunch of retards, and I'm sorry to say it, and I remember I was in the back of the church, and he started to speak again, and before he even completed, they're all, amen, praise the Lord. He's, you're not listening to me, you're not listening, you're not hearing, amen, and I'm just like, what the hell? Now I'm sitting all the way in the back row, but I'm sitting all the way to the right of my row, and he can see me. He looks at me, and I nod my head, and he nodded back like, you understand what I'm saying? Like, yeah, they're asleep. They're not even listening to what you're saying. They're just going through the motions. They were not on path. So this whole thing is about looking within, which means doubt is the complete opposite. So the journey you're on is a very painful one. It's like, no, you're going to get through this whether you like it or not, kicking and screaming the entire frickin' way. There is no release. There is no door to walk out. It's like, once you join this journey, you're going to get through it. And for those of you who got to the point where you went through what I call the Great Wall of China, where you completely isolated, you just put the walls up. Even if you were going to work every day, you just were not interacting with people the same way. You were just like curt to the point. You looked down, you looked away. I got to go. Sorry, I'm busy. Like, you isolated yourself from the world in one way or another. Because what happened was you got the final attack. You were getting lied to by the narcissist, his flying monkeys, his group of friends, whatever you call it. It was like they lied after lie after lie. They promised after promise after promise. They breadcrumb after breadcrumb after breadcrumb. By the way, all this stuff I'm talking about, these are all lies. Breadcrumb is lying. It's a promise. I'm going to give you a little bit, and you'll get more down the road, but you don't get more down the road. But they give you a little bit more just to keep you going. It's one big trail of breadcrumbing lies. Gaslighting. What is gaslighting? It's all about lies. Some of you, as I did, you got drugged, whether it was a sleeping pill, a date rape drug. You might have actually been filmed. I'm not going to go too much into depth on that, but some of you and some of us have had some horrendous things happen to us that, I don't know what the word is. It makes you feel like nothing. You feel empty. You feel, I guess violated is the word, but it's beyond that. You just feel, it's nothing. They did everything in their power to make you feel completely, totally lost, violated, and to finally feel like nothing. So what happened? You didn't trust anyone. I don't know about you guys, but I went through a stage where I trusted no one, and this stage lasted for about 4 years or longer. And that's one of the reasons why you isolated yourself, because you didn't know who to trust, you didn't know who to talk to, Okay, I'm actually talking for myself and from the people that I've personally talked to about this stuff over the last 4+ years. The Bible even says, and I just lost the phrase, I had it in my head, the verse, it says basically, trust no man. And the actual definition of the usage of that word man does not mean men, it means humans, men and women. Essentially, trust no one. So going through this absolute complete loss, like I didn't even, there was an energy healer I used to go to, and I called her and said, and I remember she was trying to help me through it, and it's like, I'm sorry, but I don't trust you. And she's like, what? I go, I don't trust anybody. And I went into isolation for a long time, didn't date, wasn't talking to people on the phone. I was as isolated as you can possibly be. But there was a transformation that was happening. eventually I started going on public. I started going to coffee shops, started going to stores, and I remember when I was about 3.5 years into, I started to open up, and I found one or two good people, and then bam, one person hurt me really bad. And then someone that I thought I trusted, bam, they pulled a number on me again. And I was just flustered and scared. I don't trust anyone. I didn't, it was like, but what it was doing, it was forcing me to trust me. And that's the entire point. To trust your intuition, to trust that feeling you have in your chest, in your gut, to trust that instinct, to trust what your body, yourself, is telling you. Suddenly, I could read people, and I could read people. It didn't matter what they said to me. It didn't matter what the facial expression was, the fake smile, or the whatever I did. It's like I'm at a point now where I just lock onto people and I stare at them. I'm watching every movement. And it makes them uncomfortable. I'm not doing it on purpose. In fact, for a while, I didn't understand, why are people pulling away? What's going on? I didn't understand. It's it's because I'm completely aware. And humans are not used to another human completely watching every movement, every thought, every tone, every tempo, every rhythm, every sentence, every word. But the funny thing is, it's not in the left brain disciplined structure kind of way. It's in that right brain, the soft way, where I completely let go. I'm completely expanded, and I'm receiving everything that they're saying, all of their energy, all of their tones, all the consonances, all the vowels, and now I can see them. It's done in a completely, totally letting go kind of way, and that allows your awareness to expand wide open. See, when you finally become an internal being and you look within, which is what looking within means. It means to become internal, to drop your awareness down inside. Because when yourself begins to trust you, that you connect with it, it's connected to God, and God will speak through that self, and you begin to feel God's turn left, go right, do this, do that, Ace of Spades, Queen of Hearts, etc., etc. Whatever it is, I don't care what you call it. Call it God, call it intuition, call it spirit. I do not care what you call it. It speaks through the self, and all you have to do is be completely wide open and let go. With an awareness inside your body. And that's what Christ meant when he said, look within. Now listen closely to the tone shift of the two words I'm going to say. This is the I am. I is up here, am is down here. The I is in your forehead. The am is in your gut and in your chest and your heart area. Forehead is logical brain. The am is the emotional right brain, which is connected to your body, your chest, your heart, your physical body. This is why Jesus says, I am that I am. This is why Popeye the Sailor Man says, I am that I am. I think he says, I am what I am, Popeye the Sailor Man, toot toot. Now you might think, oh, that's a cute little cartoon. No, that's a message. And the messages are everywhere. When you wake up, you start to see them. You start to hear them. You begin to notice them everywhere without trying. And this is done through the I am. It's when your forehead drops down to your heart. It's like a door. You open it up. Technically, neurologically, it's from your left brain opens a door to the right brain. And those nerves go down into your body, and that's how you feel it, is through your gut feeling. You feel it in your heart. You feel it. You literally can feel it in your arms, your legs. You just feel it in your body. Now that's a really nice, cute, scientific way of explaining it. I didn't read this in a book. No one taught it to me. It's because I opened up and I felt it. I was like, oh, that's what it is. It's the I am. So your journey, the reason why you took this path was because you absolutely wanted to connect to God. You do it through the I am. You do it through your inner self, because that is where God resides. What does Jesus say? The Lord resides within the temple. Then what does he say? He says the body is the temple of the Lord. And then what does he say? He says, look within. And then he says, trust no man. Why? Because you're supposed to be listening to yourself, the inner being that's connected to God, where the Lord resides. Now, looking within is literally as easy as dropping awareness down inside your belly, your solar plexus, say the size of a ball, say a baseball, and then expanding it all the way to your ribs and your chest, and just allow your awareness to drop down inside in an open way. You allow it. You don't push, you don't pull, you just notice that space, and you notice whatever you notice. Just like when you're walking down the sidewalk, like, oh, I noticed there's a white picket fence. Oh, there's a tree on the other side of the road. You just notice whatever you notice. There's no judgment there. There's just open, spacious, expanded awareness, and just allowing yourself to notice. Notice whatever you notice. There is no right or wrong. There's just whatever is. Now, it's one thing to tell you to look within. It's another thing to actually teach you how. Again, this is my course, Look Within. Or sorry, I might actually call it that, Look Within. This is my course that I'm calling Internal Awareness, okay, and Emotional Grounding Techniques. When you learn these techniques, you literally learn how to look within. And this is how you connect to God. Then full throttle spiritual badass. One thing I want to say is it is a process, and you will make mistakes, and that's okay, because even though I went to the Great Wall of China, I started to open up, and oh wait, that's a good person. I could tell by their light, I could tell by their whatever. But then there was one person I thought, I wasn't, and then afterwards I was like, you know what, my gut was telling me this person's not a good person, but I didn't listen to it. You are going to get punished. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get emotionally hurt each and every time you don't pay attention. Each and every time. See, it's like you are going to get so finely tuned in. It's going to be there, period. That's why you chose this journey. You knew going in this was going to be one of the toughest, most horrifying, terrifying experiences of probably all your lifetimes, if we can call that. I know a lot of you don't like to say that, but you chose this because you wanted to have it locked in. You wanted to take it to the next level. You wanted to graduate from this once and for all. That's why Christ is so important to you, because his journey was all about look within. So you could be a spiritual badass too. God bless you guys. Thank you for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope it helped you. That little technique I taught you about 2 minutes ago about looking within, expanding, do that. Lay down with it. Sit down, lay back, and just be in that space for 5, 10, 15 minutes until you completely let go. Hey, this is Mike Kollin at MikeKollin.com or SpiritualBadass.com. If you like this video, please click subscribe, click the like button, go ahead and make a comment. And as always, there is a PayPal link right there in the description box if you want to go ahead and make a donation. See you guys in the next video. Bye.